Do you have a website you might want to sell either now or in the future? We have a hungry list of cashed up and trained up buyers that want to buy your content website. If you have a site making over $300 per month and want to sell it, head to buyingonlinebusinesses.co/sell your business or email us at info@buyingonlinebusinesses.com because we will likely have a buyer. Details are in the description. Jeff, you're back, mate. Welcome back. It's so good to chat to you.
What's happening, Jared? How are you?
I'm
Good to
really
see
good.
you.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Just a wild ride in the world of content
Oh, isn't it?
and search in 2023, and every day is something new. Every day my laundry list gets longer and longer and longer of things I wish I could be in the know of. So
I hold that thought because we're about to just go down a big rabbit hole with that. But I just want to say for everybody listening, Jeff has been on the podcast before, and you've also been on our summits, our online summits. After our first podcast we did together was episode 82. We're up to 228 now. uh,
amazing.
and that episode was how to buy and build content websites with you. So, guys, I'll link to that in the show notes. I think it's such a pillar, piece of content there. You guys should listen to. Go back, check that out. But Jeff, I wanted to get you back on because we've had some good chats after recording, even on the online summits in the last few years, and a lot's happened. And 2023, what a whirlwind time. Um, Especially with this AI conversation going on. And I'm huge in the camp of trying to allow people to not rip their hair out and just de-stress themselves by understanding where we're at with it and how it can be helpful, but not to get too distracted in a sense. And then I was looking at guests that I've had on the pod, people I enjoy talking to that have dropped some absolute bombs, knowledge bombs. And you came up, and I was like, let's. And then I saw that you guys at Market Muse have some AI software thing that you're embedding and integrating with it. And I just emailed you, and you're like, how did you even know that we were going to do this? And yeah, so tell me, where do we begin? I got so many questions, but where do you think we should start?
Well, I think that there's a few things that come to mind with your audience, and I love your site and your the podcast, and I'm always thinking about buying and selling, podcasts and how what's going through the minds of buyers and what's going through the minds of sellers. And so I really do want to get into the details and the thought that I've had on site valuations, things to look for, all of that, and through the lens of this massive disruption, the
Mm,
AI disruption. Um, but just in the short stroke, or from a market muse perspective, we a couple of years ago, we've always been an artificial intelligence first company. So our core technology, what we have patents on from 2013 to 15, is an AI technology. It's a branch of artificial intelligence called topic modeling, graph theory, applications of machine learning, where we can basically determine what it means to be an expert on a concept. That was the core of what we built. So if you say, what does it mean to be an expert on, you know, any concept, any specific, thing you'd be looking for? I'm looking at your surfboard in the background. So, what's the difference between a three
free pin.
skeg surfboard and a four skeg surfboard, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, what are the things that would be included if you were covering that particular intent and writing that? What other content would you need? You'd probably need to know about surfing. You'd probably have to know content about shapes of boards, materials, sizes, how, expertise, skill development. You go through that. Market Muse goal is to provide a site owner who wants to establish expertise and exhibit that expertise with the content, with all the things they need to build, whether it's how to update one page or what is the next 100 pages I need to write.
Yeah.
That's always been our mission, right? So a couple of years ago, we launched. a large language model solution called MarketMuse First Draft, and it was the industry's first generation technology. And this is the fun part because it failed miserably
Ha.
because it was too early, it was too expensive, but the quality's better
Mm,
than what you can get even today out of ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, which it would be the prevailing API in OpenAI. If you're a ChatGPT Plus customer, you can get access to 4 right now,
mm,
GPT-4.
mm.
Um, there is now more than 40 open source large language models that anyone can get access to very simply that are all at that level or higher. But when we were building that a couple of years ago, it would cost 20 to $30 to generate one model, one page, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, so if you're running a business, we have to charge $100 for that. Nobody was ready to buy a page of content that was generated for $100.
Yeah.
And now you can do it for fractions of a penny. So where we're at today is we've got to be thinking about how to keep humans in the loop when the price of generation and the price of response is the way
Mm,
that I like to think about it. You can get information, the price of that response is fractions of a penny. And that's the world we're in. So I think setting the standard for like set the framework for, hey, it is everything we talk about can be done and it can be done for an unimaginably low price.
mm,
So now everyone has to change the way they think about costs of content, costs of websites. The cost basis just imploded because it's not the fact that the unit cost did. It's that we now need to think differently about the true costs that go in. So where in the past we might have been thinking that a page costs X dollars, now we're realizing that the actual content on the page wasn't the all-in costs, and us not thinking critically about those costs has actually set us behind. What am I talking about? Opportunity costs, costs to edit, cost to publish, cost to promote, cost to interlink. All these other costs
mm.
had previously been engulfed in this the price I paid to my writer. So the true cost of content's now coming in.
Yeah. You mean we're realizing that to get the content created is a lot cheaper, and then the real costs of everything else is, oh, it's getting more attention now because we've solved one problem in the pipeline with cheaper to create content, right?
Yeah, so the market for humans to create page of crappy content is gone.
Yeah.
And that over the course of the last 9 months went from a thriving business to invisible.
Yep.
And the impacts of that, it's tremendous disruption. And it's the type of disruption nobody really wants to talk about too, because it's the purchase of a low quality raw material, right?
Hmm.
And nobody wants to talk about that, right? Um, and so when that can be replaced, an entire industry changes overnight. So if you were ahead of that, you were thinking, okay, what managed services can I provide? How can I improve this? But you're starting to see the trickling of the impacts of that.
Mm.
And people are realizing that beautiful content, when it's written by somebody who really knows what they're talking about, is way more
Way,
than
way.
10x, 70x
Yeah.
more valuable.
Mm.
And that gap between the what can be generated and what a person with true experience can produce may be getting smaller, but the gap between what a low quality writer and the generation, there is no gap anymore. And that's that mind shift
Mm.
that nobody really knows the impacts of that because we're in the middle of that disruption.
Yeah. I think there's two different types of people, and I don't want to categorize everybody because there's people that play in between. But what I've yeah, what I see is there's people that were getting low quality content written by virtual assistants and writers and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and publishing it, and now they can do that with a tool, and they're still going down that path, versus people that are actually winning as bloggers and content site owners are the ones, and because I see this all day every day when a site goes up for sale that somebody's built to
Yep.
sell, and they've just tried to rank for keywords and just put content on the page, on multiple pages at volume of, like, I've seen sites with, like, not that we need to use metrics, but 800 articles, 800 posts, 800 pages on the site with a DR or an authority score around like the 8. And it's like, how, like, what have you even done? You've just wasted a lot of time and a lot of money and not provided any value. And I think there's a lot of people, I'm hoping, in that camp that are realizing now, since ChatGPT has been, available for what, 5 6 months or something, bit longer. That they've published a lot of that stuff at Velocity, and Google's like, cool, we'll rank you quickly to see if it's to test to see if that page is any valuable, and quickly seeing it's not valuable, and then tank the site. And I'm hoping a lot of people are understanding now the value of human beings.
It's an odd paradox, right?
Yeah.
It's this dream of, and that's where. So I mean, I think it's also worthwhile for the your listeners, the 2 minute explanation, so that you don't fall into a rabbit hole I'm seeing everyone fall into, and
Mm.
it is ChatGPT is an exhibition of AI, but large language models and ChatGPT isn't AI, right? They're not equivalent. One is a thing that exists, and I might sound like talking. You might be sitting there like, Jeff, I know that, but a
Yeah.
lot of folks.
Don't.
Okay, this was the most massive democratization of an of a premature early stage product that we've experienced, Jared, in our lifetimes.
Mm.
This is the biggest product management gaffe that the world of technology has ever experienced.
Mm.
It was the instant democratization of a concept called AI. The first time that 90% of our world, right, who cares about this, got access to AI was this thing.
Yeah.
So they equate AI
AI.
is this thing.
Yeah. Correct.
And so that's when you see these people gawking, and I'm not classifying these people. Like you said, there's two types of people. Right? When you see a person saying, "Oh, it can't do complex math. AI can't do complex math." Wrong. AI can do complex math. That particular software product that you're using that you have access to cannot. But for example, Google has a entire team working on a product called Minerva. It does complex college, university level mathematics,
Mm.
right? Stuff that would blow your mind. You know, there are branches of AI that can solve your problem. So when you think, oh, this thing I have access to can't do this, there probably is something that somebody's working on that can. Don't say, just because this thing I have access to can't do it, it can't be done. It can be done. Most likely it's in the process of being done. So for everybody, thinking critically about that is top priority for me because, like, you're not beholden to only use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There are so many different ways. So what I like to tell people, and this is something that I'm really advocating for, is do a personal process inventory. Everything you do manually in your business, it can be improved by artificial intelligence today in a way that you wouldn't believe it. It sounds like a big elephant to eat. I mean, it does. Break it down by little baby pieces,
Mm.
and you might not solve all of them, but start like ask somebody who you think is a peer. email me, jeff@marketmuse.com, right? And say, is there something that is solving this problem right now with artificial intelligence, right? We probably can point you in the right direction. There's also the idea of the extinction of the if then statement,
Mm,
extinction of business logic. So while you're doing this process, anytime you have business rules that are simple, if the prospect is from Australia, respond to that lead in 4 minutes, right? Anytime you've got if then statements, it can be improved.
yeah.
Because so these are the biggest things. People's brains are, not ready for this disruption.
Yeah.
The disruption and the wave of artificial intelligence, every type of business, every type of software is about to either be swept away like a wave and eliminated or completely disrupted. Where a business that doesn't embrace this and get on a path to migration will be obsolete. And we're not talking about a decade. We're talking about 2 to 3 years at best. And in some of these cases and industries, you're talking about months.
Mm.
Imagine you're a 2 cent, 3 cent content provider. Months. And you no longer have a sellable product, right?
Yeah.
You have to pivot or die. There's gonna be a lot of pivot or die industries that we can't even predict right now. So be thinking about that.
Yeah, especially in our world of content creation and optimization.
Yeah,
There's tools that I have been looking at just for helping us with content creation. And I think the way to, like you mentioned, look at one part of your business, like because everything can be more efficient. And
right.
the way it's funny that people think, all right, AI is the answer. It's not the answer, and I've repeated this on multiple podcasts now, but it is a helpful tool to allow you to decrease a system or a process and make it more productive and have your team spend less time on it. Do you still need your team for quality assurance? F yes. Hell yes, you
More
need
than ever.
more than ever because and you're really by having that quality assurance, you're going to set yourself apart because a lot of people are going to throw that out like, cool, I don't need my assistant. Oh, I don't need this person anymore. And that's what they're thinking of doing is saving money and time when reality is they're going to have a inferior product in terms of content compared to a lot of people. And the way I like to think about it is that look at one system or one process in your business, and it could be around content creation, it could be around something else, and then see if you can find a tool that can help you, keyword, help you, help or help the assistant or the person that's working in that role do that task to make their task or their time more productive. And also ask them, hey, if I buy this tool, how much time do you think you will save? And how much better do you think you could make this piece of content, or this, how much better could it be? And ask them. And instead of just going, yep, cool, I've just found this tool that's going to fix it, and just buy it, use it, and it's just you're spitting out crap, because that's what I'm seeing people do
Okay.
and it's scary. It's scary for their businesses.
Oh, it's the ultimate. So what happens when there's a massive amount of supply, right, on
Yeah.
something like this? The governance of it becomes the initial shots on this become very heavy-handed. So if there's gonna be regulatory outcomes in the form of Google penalization or being very strict on it, the heavy-handedness and the mistakes are gonna come now,
Yeah.
right? So what does that mean?
And they're already
And
coming
and
too.
this
We're already seeing it play
oh
out. It's crazy.
oh, it's already playing out. The reviews stuff has been they were getting ahead of it, and now it's all kinds of reviews. I
Yeah.
saw a travel review site, the other day, and none of the person clearly never went to any of the places they were profiling. I mean, if you really know the places,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the they were actually I read they had an article about Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I live right now, and I was like, "They've never actually been here."
It's like
They actually,
I'm an AI and
yeah,
I created a travel destination on the 15 best things to do in Jacksonville or Jackson
yeah,
Hole, and you know, I'm an AI, but I can't
right.
experience it
Oh, it
because
was
I'm an AI.
you've never actually, yeah, you've never actually been here, and there was a key point of why I could tell they weren't actually here, right?
Mm,
But that's the problem, right? That's the search engine's problem. It's the the litmus test on authenticity is hard to verify. It's really hard challenge. That's their problem when there's fraud, right? But
mm,
let's just say this. If you try to get away with fake authenticity and then you get caught,
mm.
the hammer isn't gonna be a hammer. It's gonna be the biggest hammer it's gonna be Thor's hammer, and it's gonna hit you in the
Yeah.
face. And if you're a baby site, if you're a little site, if you're a if you're a mid-market site, you get hit by the hammer, you ain't coming back.
Mm,
Imagine if you're a big brand. So if you're running all home robotic vacuums.info, right? Okay. Well, guess what? You buy roboticvacuumsforme.com and
mm,
you try again.
mhm,
Okay. I've seen that. I've seen a lot of the touts online. That's their business.
mhm.
If one of the sites gets exploded, they go run another one. But if you're working for Dyson or you're working for a publisher and the hammer comes down,
Gone.
uh-oh. That you can do some serious damage. So that's where I'm seeing agencies give advice to real brands on how to like completely put them at risk.
Yeah.
Big publishers already cleaning house on people making bad choices.
And that's
I mean, the
because
amount of
that's an unfortunate
movement,
thing is
crazy.
because
Yeah.
content agencies like that have their
All
way,
right.
which is built out from the last 3 years on their process and their systems and what the team's trained in and how it works for them. And it's a one size
Right.
fits all approach. One size fits all approach is not how you grow any business.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't be. So I like to say it's the right now is it's the rise of the subject matter expert editor.
Yes.
They're the most valuable human in
Correct.
the room,
Yeah.
and your content needs to be both authentic, and here's the trick, I just came up with this one. It's authentic and authenticatable,
Yes. Yes. You can
okay?
actually see that they're in the industry, in the niche, and
Yep.
by multiple pieces of data on the internet, right? Like Facebook, Instagram, other
Or
publications.
if they're a journal yeah,
Yeah.
or if they're a journalist, or if they have that skill, the reference of how the information was acquired
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm.
Because I mean, so I own a beer brewery. Okay, many people know that.
Yeah.
So I'm really into beer.
Yeah.
I've been doing ad servers, search engine optimization, product management, everything you could possibly imagine that relates to, software. If I go write a post about beer and brewing, I actually have experience in most of those things, right?
Mm.
I have I can wax it, right? Um, if I were to write an article about being a lab technician in a water treatment facility, okay? It's adjacently topic related. I've never actually worked in a water treatment
Yeah.
facility. I could probably get there, and I'm saying this because water treatment is a topic one cares about in the beer industry,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
You I've sent water out for analysis. I've tested water myself, but I've never actually sat in the chair as a technician.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I might be able to build a content item that tells the story of expertise. Maybe it makes sense how I would get that point of reference, but I've never actually been in the chair,
Mm-hmm.
right? I may be able to write about human resources software, but I've never run a payroll, right? These are the things that are going to start cranking and being authenticatable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, the proof's gonna be in the pudding. Your early stage awareness, consideration, purchase content, your support content, you know, it's gonna have to all make sense that you wrote it, and that's coming. Like, I'm already starting to see it. Reviews is the first hammer. I mean, and it's been a bad one. If you didn't actually review that dog food, if you don't have that dog chomping down on those food on that food, um, and you're like, yes, and this comes in small bits and it has a chicken flavor. Like, guess what? See ya. I mean, it's not gonna last forever. Some of these big brands are still getting away with it. I was
Yeah, it's
talking to a big brand, and I told them a year ago that one. I'm not going to say which one or which site. I said this article gets $129,000 a month in
mm,
affiliate clicks,
mm.
one page. And I said it's your worst page,
Ooh,
and you haven't wanted to touch it because you're so afraid to touch it. I said if you don't touch that page, one day you're going to call me crying because it's gone. And I told them exactly why. And guess what? They didn't touch it. They were
mm.
so afraid. And guess what? It's gone.
Yeah, that's yeah, and that's a decent paycheck just gone off from one page, you know. And I have this example that I like to share with my
Million bucks a year.
yeah,
It
million
was a
bucks
big
a year.
page.
Yeah, it's like I have this example that I share with people that I do coaching in one-on-one coaching with
Mhm.
and in my mastermind. And I say to them, if your goal is to learn how to be like, is to catch a certain fish and be a certain fisher person, and
Mhm.
um you've got to go get a fishing rod, right? So you type into Google, the best fishing rods to buy to catch, I don't know, marlin, and you go to two different sites. One page is 15 Amazon links to 15 of the best marlin fishing rods in 2023. And then the other page, and that's written by somebody that has nothing on the author section down the bottom, and there's no real uh, person who runs the page. That's you can see that they're into fishing. And then you've got another site that you go to, and it's not the 15 best fishing rods from Amazon. It's the two best marlin fishing rods, and the person who wrote the article is an expert in marlin fishing. And he's got videos of him using both of the different rods, snapping one staying intact, him catching actual marlin with the rods, showing it actually works, social proof. If I'm going to buy a fishing rod, which review and which rod am I going to buy? Because I'm the human being on Google searching it. Let's be honest, right? Let's be real. If you are the owner of a content site and you have the 15 best fishing rods in 2023 without it written or tested or used, how I'm still amazed that Google has not wiped that out completely already.
Oh, it's if it's not part of a solar system of content that tells the story that you actually do know how to catch a marlin and you can get to it. And honestly, I was actually because we're building some AI, some ways of processing our site level inventory data. So I was actually profiling a friend of mine's site. Um, Speaking of at a mastermind retreat a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
and I'm not going to dox them either, but the site basically the evaluation by my system was you've been too heavily focused on middle of the funnel content with low expertise. All the clearly that's it. You haven't focused, and this is very relevant to what you just said. So, marlin fishermen, what types of content would somebody who is really into that likely produce? Skill development content,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
Experiential content, right? Well, that site about the fishing poles has no content about different ways to troll lengths. I'm making this up. I have no knowledge of trawling lengths and the line weights, the types of steel. That's as far as I can get, right?
You're doing
But
better than me.
in this I did all right, right? How a rockfish might take your halibut lines
Yeah.
if you don't watch it, right?
Yeah.
That's a real thing. It happened to me when I was in Alaska one time. Rockfish hooked my halibut line.
Rockfish, is that
Um,
the same as a stonefish?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, the one I caught had like two different colored eyes. It was really
and they're
freaky. You
very
can look it up.
poisonous, right?
They're weird looking.
Yeah,
They're like sea in US we have sea robins on the East Coast. They look horrible. It's basically the beautiful Pacific Ocean, Alaska rockfish. But like only an expert would know that, right?
yep.
And if you don't have any of that, if you don't have any skill development, you're only there. Your purpose. You are a grand arbitrager.
Yeah, it's wild to think that people still are just going to find writers that can just write rather than going to find
Mhm.
writers that like have actual experience in the space and
Right.
hiring them based on actually I like how much knowledge you've got versus this other person who may have been in the space for 2 years and you've been in the space for 10 years. Hire your writer
Right.
based on that, not on can you write an article. Most people that studied English and went to school can write, so why not hire somebody that has more experience and provable experience on the web
You know,
as not even a
yeah,
writer, right? You could
right.
use Market Muse to help get some content created, but use them as just the editor, like the quality assurance to make that piece of content far superior than anybody else's because you've got that person who's in the space as eyeballs on it.
Yeah, you almost have to say an expert has reviewed this, and I don't even like the review only.
Mm.
Checked it for okay, it's good enough, right? I want I want them to bring
Co-written.
something to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want them to bring a personal narrative.
Hmm.
I want them to bring
Story.
a story to it. I want them to have done a real conscious developmental edit, or maybe they did an interview with someone at the company who isn't a writer but
Hmm.
has that expertise, right? Because um, and those need to be meets minimums. It's so cool. I'll use this is an analogy. I'll use, and you made me think about this one. But it's what everybody needs to be thinking about for their business. One of the first implementations of natural language generation, which is this field of AI. There was some before. We don't need to do a history lesson. There's a podcast of me doing a history lesson on this. I'll send it to you if anyone wants to listen.
Link it. Yeah.
But one example, Washington Post, they had a internal product called Heliograph, and it was one of the first natural language generation AI solutions that was publishing articles. And I love this example. First of all, it was what inspired me to build in the space. Hearing the head of AI talk about this years, 2016, 17. Um, but they had a real business problem they were solving. They couldn't cover all the events in the Olympics, and they couldn't cover all the elections, state and local government. They were only covering like 10% of the Olympics. And they were only covering like 5% of all the elections. And this software allowed them to cover all the elections and all the events fairly with a
Hmm.
minimum level of quality, right? And it couldn't be templated because judo, for example, has two bronze medals. So you have to, it can't just be ifs and thens, right?
Yeah.
And so they had to build something that was better. And elections can be all over the place. A local mayoral election may have 30 candidates, right? You can't program, just having two parties or something like that, right? So it had to be pretty sophisticated. But when they were done, the editorial team felt amazing because they were able to focus on being creative,
Hmm.
and there was never a feeling like, oh my gosh, we missed a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
So my thought process here for every company, and it's why I advocate for the process inventory, is you gotta find your Olympics. You gotta find your elections.
Yeah.
What aren't you doing today? So the Marlin Fisherman site where they've been producing, top 10 rods that are 10 feet, 16 feet, $100, $200. Well, focus your energy on actually going fishing and writing about it, on skill development,
Yeah.
on being creative.
Yeah.
And the magical combination of those two things, that's what is going to be valuable. And so I love the idea of, first of all, the low quality content as a product going away, but it's about finding your why. Why are you doing this in the first place? And if okay, cool, you've been making money, FBA site, sweet. Well, this is the time to figure out how to build a foundation because you've been living on a house of cards. Now, you
Mm,
might be able to build, and the foundation can be of creativity and expertise and
yeah.
just awesomeness. And you'll spend the same amount of money because the other stuff is, you know,
Just
no
not.
longer an
Yeah,
asset.
exactly. Yeah, it's just the way you explain find your Olympics and
Mhm,
be passionate about it. Like for me, if I was to create a site from scratch, it
mhm.
would be about surfing, and
Oh, cool.
I would absolutely love it. Just froth out on it, and I would cover all the topics,
Mhm,
and it would be, you know, I would make it into the best site on how to become a surfer, and how to get
mhm,
better. And the the stories that I have, the quality of content, the level of passion that I would pour into it, people aren't, I don't care about just views. I care about people that are coming back, and I care about their journey as a surfer. I'm not just short term minded of like, I just need views and I need to add revenue and affiliate revenue. I don't care about affiliate revenue and ad revenue. The joy that I'm going to get from helping them transform their lives from becoming a better surfer because they get so much joy is going to be the valuable thing there. And the more value that I create there, the more money I'm going to make as a byproduct through ads and affiliates
in the long
and
run.
the digital products that I have to sell through my email list, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's with same on, and you're gonna get people, it's kinda like, what level of expertise can you get to the page?
Mm,
So, the talent of an editor, the talent of a content marketing strategist isn't always writing. For a while, people have been lost in that. Maybe you're not Jared, maybe you're not the writer on
correct.
that site,
Yeah.
but somebody's coming in and they're interviewing you every day. They're doing research to say, um, you know, uh, you know, ask you about the things that they're getting from their topic analysis about, you know, why why you would want,
Hmm.
I don't know, a handle on your longboard.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and or not, right? One reason why you wouldn't is because you'll scrape the hell out of your foot. And
Yeah.
I did that a couple of weeks ago, one of those silly longboard handles.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, oh man, it's so brutal. Um, and so
Yeah, you don't need to be,
to be the
the owner
writer.
doesn't need to be the writer, right? Because I'll give you an example. We just closed the deal, mid six figure content site, and the owner of the business is not in, it's in the musician space, right?
Mhm.
The owner of the business isn't a musician, but the person who edits and co-writes the content is a musician in that space, and they
Yep.
absolutely love it. And the person that
Yep.
bought the business is going to keep that person on no matter what, because they're going to have the experiences. They're the ones that are going to have the videos that they can make and the images of them and their guitar or whatever collection of their music is, and
Yep.
then it's just real. Like it's, and that
Right.
person becomes the, doesn't need to become the brand, but they can become like the most valuable person to write the content. And you could have multiple people in that as well. And the reason I say this, and I'm glad that you brought that up, is because people that are buying sites are like, well, I want to buy something, but I can't find something that I'm an expert in. You do not need to
Right.
find somebody that you do not need to be an expert in what you purchase in that niche. You do need to find somebody who is and can
Right.
co-write and edit.
Yeah, you nailed it on the money. It's real hard to get away with longevity. If you don't care about it and you
Yeah.
don't know someone who does,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, art thieves, right? It's real easy to spot a fake. I mean, in every space that I'm really into, I mean, I read so much SEO content. I can spot a fake. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done I've done no fewer than 1,000 site migrations, and that I know that sounds insane, but
Wow.
I mean, in 1 2-year period, I think I did 2 or 300, um, and of various shapes and sizes. And I can spot somebody who's never actually done a migration but wrote a post about it. You
Hmm.
better you better believe that, right?
Yes.
How many content strategies have we built? I built multiple ad servers, search engines. I know when someone understands information retrieval and when they are just talking about search engines. I mean, it's like you're a surfer. You can spot if I wrote an article about surfing, okay? I grew up on the New Jersey shore. I grew up bodyboarding, skimboarding, surfing. I every once in a while, if I wrote one and I was trying to what skill development, you could spot that I am an armchair quarterback at best.
No
You could
offense, but I
spot
already knew
it.
by just what you've talked
Yeah,
about in surfing already. It's funny when most people see
yeah,
the surfboard here and they're like, they talk. It's a really good talking point. But
yeah.
it's a
But
big
I
part
know,
of my
I know,
brand.
I know, I'm like a shred of information. I can probably talk a little bit more about skimboarding because that's what I was actually good at.
Mm,
But surfing, come on, it's the type of article you'd see. And I'm going to use this as an example because if you were these top 10 surfboards for big waves, small waves, right? What
mm,
kinds of what kinds of early stage awareness content might you write? What's the difference between regular and goofy foot?
yeah.
Like,
And it's
come
good to
on,
it's good that you mention this as well, because even when you do use tools that are like answer the public and keyword generators and
right?
stuff like that, you can get all these keywords like, okay, cool, that's the most volume. I'm just going to go for that. But what is that going to look like in the journey of somebody going through the content
What's it
anyway? And
mean?
is it relevant?
Exactly.
And it's
Mhm.
same with Market Muse. And I want to get to Market Muse. I want to chat
Sure.
about how Market Muse is evolving. First and
Mm.
foremost, for people that don't know much about Market Muse, just plug it a little bit and let us know what are the things that you can use as a blog owner and a content site owner, um, within Market Muse, and then let's move into where you're going with it.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is site level and page level. All the workflows that go from ideation and research
Hmm.
all the way through to post-publish optimization and improvement and competitive assess. Everything the content goes through that journey. And the cool thing about the way that we built Market Muse too is every stage in that content's journey can be added to, it can be amplified by keeping a human in the loop, right? So when you're doing your research, when you're providing that ideation, when you're going from data to a data to plan, right? We're going to be building some automated plans in the future. So we can actually say, based on what you've written, you're not covering skill development in your surfing site. So we're going to be getting into that type of thing. We've already built it. It's just stuff that we have to get into software. Um, we deliver it to all of our clients. So it's ideation planning, but delivering the why for your content. Why are we building this page instead of that page?
Yeah,
Is there a good reason for it? And then we were the first person to automate a brief in software, so content briefs and outlines that you might need to deliver to a writer or have as a source of truth, constantly improving and evolving that space because the content outline from AI is now a commodity, right? You can build outlines that are
hmm,
okay.
hmm,
You can't build great ones, but you can build pretty good ones. Good framework AI, great framework outlines. And then we have our suite of applications that work on specific workflows, site level cluster analysis,
oh yeah,
site level quality analysis, um, who's ranking in the top 20 in search and who's got good content versus bad content. And then how do I update my page to be the best page that exists from the lens of quality and expertise? And this is where I love Market Muse with regard to expertise, right? We can pull a topic model on a really esoteric surfing concept, a really esoteric beer concept. In that topic model will be things that me with no knowledge of the topic, I would have never thought. to include that. But you, because you know, like
Would.
you're like, oh yeah, that's obvious, right? And so the difference between an article written by an expert and someone who's not is that they typically cover the stuff that's at the top of the topic model, the obvious stuff, and they don't get into the stuff in the middle and the bottom.
Mm,
And when you figure out the middle and the bottom of that topic model, that's when you're showing your true differentiated expertise. So what Market Muse does is it gives you a reason why, a why should we budget this for this. It starts to get predictive,
mm.
and then it makes sure that the thing that you publish is differentiated and exhibiting expertise. And so some of the things we're doing, we did implement a ChatGPT API integration into there, so you can weave in your own prompts. It's kind of fun. We're going to be doing some additional stuff with our proprietary AI to process our own AI. It's kind of meta. We're training AI to learn how to use our other AI,
AI. So
um,
meta, yeah.
and that's the stuff I love.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Like I built a what would have previously been a 40 to 50 hour plan um, for someone the other day in 15 minutes.
Whoa.
Um,
Like content
and
planning?
it yeah, and it honestly it took me about 3 hours to
Prompt it?
make it beautiful
Yeah.
um, and ready for prime time, but 3 hours instead of 40.
Yes.
Um, and a couple of the items that I identified with it, I wouldn't have thought of myself. Even and I by the way, I did both processes because I'm, crazy like that. So I actually did it the hard way, and a couple of the items I wouldn't have thought of.
Oh, so the doing
And
it
so
yourself was inferior than using the tool and then optimizing it for 3 hours afterwards. Is that
it
right?
well, it's there were blind spots.
Yeah.
And so even being an expert, you will have blind spots. Does it mean it's better or worse? When I look at it, like a blind spot to me is like, oh crap. Like
Yeah.
you could have probably, and so when I
And
look at it,
biases could
it
factor into that as well, right? You're being
well,
biased
yeah,
towards
exactly.
one type of way to surf a surfboard, so I'm not going to cover other pieces of content, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or different intents or,
Mm,
meanings of the word that you want to exclude. And so there's just I think as a raw material creator, it it makes me like amazed. And so 3 years ago, by the way, and I'm not saying the page, but 3 years ago, I created a 4,000 word post about something that I'm passionate in with our previous AI generation product.
mhm, mhm.
I spent 4 hours weaving in a personal narrative into this article, and it was all real, right? The thing still ranks number one 4 years later, and I'm not touching it because it's kind of like a secret experiment on a site. But I took this amazing framework that was built with this topic expert model, and I wove in a lot of real talk. Only somebody who had been to this place and knew their stuff could possibly publish this article. And I've seen competitors come and go on this term, and I'm still sitting there, and I'm not updating the date on it. Like I'm
Mm,
not, I'm just letting it sit there.
that's cool.
2000, 20, just 2000, I think it might be 19. Um, and because what I want everybody to realize is that it may just be your foundation builder or your scaffolding builder. The output of it and you could be better than just you,
Yes.
and that's okay. That's okay, and because it could take less time, it could take more time, but the output, no matter what, if it's better consistently, that's the dream. And when you're evaluating a site, you want to see, you almost want to put every page through a, a pretty rough, spectrum and say,
Mhm.
none of this is built with passion. And then you might find the honey hole site, right? Which is, gosh, this person wrote a blog for 6 years, had no idea how to monetize it, but they really care about this topic.
Yeah.
That's my dream scenario, right?
Correct.
Because
Correct.
now, so those are the different situations. But a content site created that doesn't exhibit expertise and does not ooze authenticity, I'm really sorry to the listeners that have those assets.
Mm.
That's a depreciating asset, and
It
it's
is,
falling faster than you can ever imagine right now.
especially in these times. And I have advised people, when we teach people to buy a business, we also review their due diligence before they go and make an offer, and we point out the risks. And if they understand the risks and they're comfortable with the risks, then they can take on the business. And
Right.
sometimes the risks are that, look, this site has the traffic is not doing so well, but the content's very thin as well. And the
Hmm.
traffic, just say the traffic's just stable and it's just like going
Right.
sideways. It's not going up or down, but the content is not great and they don't have much EEAT. You're holding
Hmm.
this asset for how, and it's a risk for however long you hold that asset to a point where you actually build authority and you actually show some credibility and some real valuable content. So you can purchase those, but it
Yeah.
is a depreciating asset because of the landscape that where the search
Right.
engines are ranking certain sites and articles, but you can actually quickly hire somebody, get somebody on board, build in that EEAT, and then also revamp some of the content. And we've done that with somebody who bought something in the let's just say green thumb space in the niche.
Hmm.
It was going down, understood the risk, had a bit of seasonality, and it's just radically
Okay.
transformed it. But you need to know what you're doing, and I do not recommend that to everybody. So it is better off. I still believe he would have been better off buying a different asset, and he believes the same thing, but understood the risks at the same time. Turned it around. Stressful time. Uh, but why not? If you've got the opportunity, why not buy an asset that has that great content at the start? And sometimes people listening to this, Jeff, they aren't in the position that they can afford to do so.
Yeah. But also though, my best acquisitions were distressed assets.
Mm,
Um, it's and where I saw the vision of the future,
yeah,
right? And you know, and this doesn't just go, but it's the 2023 for your listeners is the definition of a distressed asset is weird and it's new.
yeah,
A site that would have been on top of the podium 2 years ago as something that would be like their prom queen,
hmm,
right? Is now not even invited to the prom, right? So the definition of what the distressed asset is has changed, and you need to change with it. So you need to say, what is the um how am I calculating this? And that's really why my soapbox couldn't even be bigger here, Jared, is because content quality and expertise is what's driving value. And you're not just saying that like a new age in a new agey way. Oh, it's got to be great. Like literally, the market's changing in front of our eyes, and the folks that get that religion as fast as possible are going to be able to assess the real value of these sites. And it's not about today's market value because people are still evolving, or devolving, and it's going to be um, you may be able to sell something for more than it's worth right now. Um, but you're probably gonna be overpaying if you don't consider quality and expertise in your assessments. So,
and yeah. So I spot on agree with what you're saying, Jeff. And just for those who are listening now to the podcast, we ended this podcast in from now to the last 2 minutes. But what happened is we had a technical error with Riverside and saying that we apparently couldn't give you the rest of the recording because you weren't connected to the internet. I'm not sure what actually happened. These guys are supposed to be the best in the business. But we lost the last sort of 2 minutes. And it was basically me wrapping up the podcast episode and reaffirming with what Jeff has actually said, that, the market's changing and you need to stay on top of things. And that's why I'm here to help people buy great assets and understand the real value of what they're worth and what they're going to be worth in the future. In saying that, if you are looking at buying a business, make sure you get my help, get my free due diligence framework. It's what I use and a lot of our clients use to help them buy sites. It's saved people millions of dollars and made people millions of dollars. So it's a really, really valuable tool. A lot of the brokers and places that people list their businesses for sale have based the data that they list on the businesses for the listing based on a lot of the questions that we ask, and set that sort of industry standard there. So it's a very valuable thing to have. If you haven't got it, buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources. Now, also Jeff, make sure you go check him out, Market Muse, or you can just email him at jeff@marketmuse.com. They've got some really, really cool things in their suite of tools. I'll put a link to them in the show notes. But as always, guys, thank you for listening. I was saying towards the end of the episode that we didn't get the recordings, that I don't typically ask people to share subscribe to this podcast, but I would like to start asking people to share it more because there's so much value. And why don't you give the gift of giving by sharing this with somebody that already owns a content site or is going to buy one? There's so much value in this. So speak to you guys soon.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.